kingdom spends 25% of its budget on education, and they're educating women, which surprised me a bit. There were women presenters. Yeah, there were women in burqas and stuff, not all of them, but it was a breath of fresh air that powerful people were there. You know, the head of Volkswagen, the big shots on Google and IBM, and the president of Georgia Tech, and, you know, the kind of movers and shakers of this world. And the response I got from people afterward, because I was still there for a couple of days, and you have meals with people and stuff, was, you know, I was surprised when they had that panel, but I think it was a good idea. That was very interesting and exciting, and probably we will be in contact with others, and we better be prepared for it. It was a very enthusiastic response. Remember, these are not the old guys who say that's not how we do it. We have to do things the way we've always done them. Well, that gets you nowhere. The buggy whip manufacturers don't have a big business these days, you know.
I know that there's a screenplay being written called Magic Men that's been optioned about your life story and another person's life story. And I was wondering what you think about that.
Well, you know, at first, gee, I'm honored. And then I thought, hey, I write books. I don't do movies. But I have done a couple of movies. UFOs are real and stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. Partly because Bryce Zabel, who's involved, he did Dark Skies for NBC back, 15 years ago, whenever it was. I've known him for a long time, and he's a sharp guy. And movies will reach a lot of people, and the goal is, and the screenplay is being written, I mean, they're not just talking, to put out a dynamic, dramatic movie that looks at the ups and downs of investigation. The other guy is Don Schmidt, who has been focused on Roswell for a long time. And we've known each other for, 30 years, something like that. And, our work with partners and the times you stumble and the people who try to take you by lying to you. Let's hope it'll turn out to be a dramatic construction of, let's say All the President's Men and JFK. And I want Richard Dreyfuss to play me, but I won't have any say.
Obviously,
it's exciting.
It sounds very exciting. It sounds like also Edgar Mitchell, who wrote the foreword for you in this book, Flying Saucers and Science. Sounds like Edgar Mitchell's also very clear and upfront that
he's talked to the right people, and he's convinced they're coming here. Remember, he grew up near Roswell, of course.
Right.
And so he has old-timers down there that he could talk to. Yeah, he's not the only one, but I was pleased that he would write the foreword for the book. And we had dinner together one time. We have met and have had some conversations. And, the astronauts are pretty sharp guys. He was the sixth man to walk on the moon. That's a rather unique honor, And he does, because he was in the Navy and a pilot, and I should correct something that many people have the impression, well, NASA's a civilian outfit. How could they know anything about this? NASA was directly converted from the old NACA, which is the National Committee on Aerospace. Oh, boy, I forgot what the initials stand for. Anyway, it was Aerospace and Aviation, and they were converted to NASA. But they did all kinds of classified work, and I worked on NASA contracts that are classified, nuclear rocket engines, stuff like that, and nuclear power plants for space. The data was classified. These weren't black projects. In other words, that we were working on them wasn't classified. The data was classified, unlike, say, the stealth aircraft, which was a black program. Nobody's supposed to know that it exists, for that matter. So NASA is much more than people think it is in some ways, and much less in others. I have a complaint about NASA. When I was working on the space program, 60s and stuff, I thought for sure we'd have a base on the moon by now and would have gone to Mars. The impetus was there, and I regret that NASA really hasn't had a goal since Jack Kennedy said, let's get a man to the moon and back safely by the end of the decade. That was a brilliant goal because it was far enough ahead so you could accomplish other goals like orbital rendezvous and develop all kinds of gimcracker you'd need, but close enough so everybody expected to be alive. And it was a national project. We all took pride in it. But do you realize there hasn't been a goal like that since?
Do you think if there was a goal and if they were aware that there's other life like us or different or more advanced, we wouldn't know anyway, would we?
Well, probably not.
We're not in the even need to know. We're beyond the need to know.
And the thing is that we do have to, I know that there are a number of people around who say, we're entitled to know everything. Disclosure should be yesterday. We tell us all. I'm not one of those people because having worked under security, there is clearly a national security aspect of this on several different levels. The obvious one is anybody who can build things that act the way saucers act in the atmosphere is going to rule the planet. They make wonderful weapons delivery and defense systems. Look at the billions of dollars we spend trying to develop better ones. So these are ideal craft. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if there's going to be disclosure, it should be done in a way which leads to the improvement of mankind. That is, you don't just dump on the world, oh, by the way, there are aliens coming here. What do you think of that? It should be, if you make an announcement, it should be, A, international. I mean, we are all Earthlings, much as we don't like to admit that some of the time. B, it should be saying, this is what we're doing about it. In other words, there are international conferences on the religious, political, economic, philosophical, if you want, aspects to this. You don't just plunge in. I think the world can handle it. I come on very strong in my lectures, and I don't panic anybody. They're not leaving saying, my God, the sky is falling in, the aliens are here. Ow! It's not like that.
I think, though, with your frame of reference, being a nuclear physicist, being a scientist, having researched this topic for 50 years, you have the insulation of immersion, which is powerful and obvious, but the average person doesn't have the same thing, and particularly if they're very religious.
The religious part is, I've sat on an airplane where a guy told me there can't be anybody out there and who still believes the Earth was created in 4004 BC. I think it was October 25th on a Thursday afternoon. But what you say is true. I'm immersed in it. But what I have found is that partly because of Carl Sagan's work, most people now seem to be convinced there's other life out there. The argument I hear all the time is, surely in this huge universe, we can't be the only ones. And we haven't been around very long when the universe is very old. I mean, you start talking around billions of years. Ooh, our history only goes back a few thousand years, doesn't it? So I find that most people are ready for the notion of aliens being out there. And especially, I don't know what the latest number is. It's well over 500 exoplanets have been found.
Would you explain what that is, an exoplanet?
An exoplanet is an extraterrestrial planet that is one outside our solar system. And we argued our concept of how planets got formed was wrong, not surprisingly. We thought it was a rare event, two stars coming close to each other, ripping out parts of one, and that formed planets. And now we know that planetary formation is apparently part of the development of many, many, many stars. The early pioneers in finding these oddball planets out there, oddball because they're not here, has estimated that in our galaxy there are over 20 billion small planets. I mean, Earth-sized planets, if you will. Ours isn't the smallest in the solar system.
How does one in science come to that kind of number for 20 billion planets?
What he did was his organization has followed 100 stars for over 5 years, looking at the planets around those stars. It takes a lot of orbits to get a good handle on the size and the mass and all that sort of stuff. And when you plot on a chart how many are big ones, like Jupiter, let's say, and how many are smaller, like Neptune, and when you plot this up, it looks perfectly clear, partly because our observation techniques have greatly improved. You can find smaller stuff now than you could 10 years ago, let's say. You find that it looks like about a quarter of the planets will be Earth-size, small ones, even though the first ones we find are the big ones because they're easiest to find. So they've been doing this for a lot of years. And you contrast that with Frank Drake, California,